Before we start, I want to say that only 1% of you are subscribed. Please subscribe because when we reach 1,000 subscribers, I will post a special video for you. The atmosphere aboard the interstellar diplomatic event was buzzing with a mixture of excitement and subtle apprehension. Multitudes of species from various parts of the galaxy gathered, each representing the pinnacle of their civilization's achievements and curiosity about the others. The event was hosted on a grand neutral space station, orbiting a serene blue giant star. Jason Ming, a cultural liaison from Earth, navigated through the crowd, his eyes wide with wonder as he absorbed the vibrant colors, unfamiliar sounds, and the rich tapestry of intergalactic cultures mingling in harmony. His task was not only to represent humanity but to foster peaceful exchanges and understand the social intricacies of the alien societies. As he approached a booth adorned with luminescent panels and holographic displays, a figure detached itself from the shadows, a slender being with shimmering skin and eyes like faceted gems. This was Linara, a delegate from Silura, a planet known for its advanced empathic society. "Hello," Jason greeted, extending a hand out of habit. "I'm Jason Ming, representing Earth." Linara's lips curled into a smile, her hand meeting as in a surprisingly warm grip. "I am Linara. It's a pleasure to meet someone from Earth. I've read much about your world's diverse cultures." Their handshake lingered, an unspoken acknowledgement of the first bridge being built. Jason was intrigued by her immediate warmth, a stark contrast to the formal introductions he'd encountered so far. "Would you care to join me for a meal? The organizers have outdone themselves with a variety of dishes from across the galaxy," Jason suggested, gesturing towards a banquet area where delegates mingled over exotic dishes. Linara's eyes lit up with interest. "I would love that. Food is such a wonderful way to share culture." As they walked towards the banquet, Jason pointed out various dishes, explaining their origins on Earth. Linara, in turn, introduced Jason to the delicacies of Silura, offering him a sample of a delicately spiced morsel that melted deliciously in his mouth. Seated with plates filled with an assortment of galactic cuisine, Jason asked, "What brings Silura to this gathering? Is there something specific you hope to achieve?" Linara paused, her expression thoughtful. "Understanding, mainly. Silurans believe in the power of empathy and emotional connection. We hope to learn how others handle these aspects in their societies." "And Earth?" she inquired, her gaze steady on him. Jason chewed thoughtfully on a piece of tender Galician tuber. "We're here to learn as well, and hopefully, to dispel some myths about humans. We aren't all about conquest and colonization as some stories suggest." Linara laughed, a clear, melodious sound. "I suspected as much. It's easy to believe stories until you meet the reality face to face." Their meal continued with discussions about their planet's history, art, and even touched on personal aspirations. Jason was struck by Linara's insightfulness and the way she seemed genuinely interested in understanding the human perspective. As they cleared their plates, Linara suggested, "Why don't we attend one of the workshops together? There's one about interstellar diplomacy. It might give us more ideas on cultural exchanges." Jason agreed enthusiastically. "That sounds perfect. It's exactly the kind of thing that can help bridge our worlds." As they stood to leave, Jason felt a sense of anticipation. This first meeting, he sensed, was the beginning of something significant not just for him or Linara, but potentially for all of humanity and Silura. They headed towards the workshop, side by side, a man from Earth and a woman from the stars, stepping into a future filled with boundless possibilities. The workshop was well underway by the time Jason and Linara arrived, and they slipped quietly into a pair of seats at the back of the room. The presenter, an expert from the Advanced Diplomatic Corps of the Harmony Cluster, was discussing nonverbal communication techniques used in interspecies diplomacy. As you can see, the presenter gestured to a holographic display showing various alien species interacting. "Much of our communication transcends spoken language. Posture, touch, and even color changes can convey a wide range of messages." Jason leaned over to Linara. "How much of this applies to Silurians?" Linara's eyes sparkled with amusement. "Quite a bit. We are very tactile and use skin color shifts to express deep emotions. It's why we find human subtleties fascinating. Your cues are mostly facial and vocal." Intrigued, Jason whispered back, "Maybe you could teach me some basic Silurian gestures? I'd hate to accidentally offend someone by reading the signs wrong." Linara nodded, and after the session, she led Jason to a quieter part of the station, a garden dome filled with lush, alien foliage and soft, ambient sounds that mimicked a natural environment. "Let's start with something simple," Linara suggested as they walked among the exotic plants. She extended her hand, palm up, and slowly shifted the color from a soft silver to a warm amber. This color shift signifies openness and friendship in Siluran culture. Jason watched, fascinated. And if I were to respond appropriately? Mirroring the gesture would be a good start. Lenara watched as Jason awkwardly held his hand out, laughing gently. Well, maybe just a handshake would suffice from a human. Grinning, Jason continued, what about expressions of gratitude or apology? Those must be important. Very, Lenara agreed. She touched a nearby leaf, causing it to glow briefly. For gratitude, we often touch our hearts and then extend our hands outward, like offering something precious from within ourselves. For apology, we cover our hearts and bow slightly, showing vulnerability. They practiced the gestures, laughing at their awkwardness but appreciating the lesson in humility and respect. As they moved through the dome, Jason found himself increasingly comfortable with the physicality of their interactions, a stark contrast to the more reserved human norms. Their lesson was interrupted by another human delegate, Tom, who is an anthropologist specializing in galactic cultural studies. He greeted them warmly. Jason, making friends with the stars, I see. Jason introduced Lenara, who greeted Tom with a flawless human handshake, causing Tom to raise his eyebrows in surprise. Lenara was just teaching me some Siluran communication techniques, Jason explained. Fascinating how much we can say without words. Tom, intrigued, suggested, you should include these findings in the intercultural communication database. It could help future diplomats and traders. Lenara looked thoughtful. That's a good idea. Sharing knowledge could help prevent misunderstandings between our species. The trio spent the rest of the afternoon discussing potential collaborations on intercultural studies. They agreed to meet the next day with a plan to formalize their ideas into a proposal for both their governments. As the day wound down, Jason felt a profound sense of accomplishment. Not only had he made a new friend in Lenara, but he was also on the path to contributing something meaningful to human-alien relations. Thank you, Lenara, for the lessons today, Jason said as they parted ways. I look forward to learning more. Lenara's skin shimmered with a light green hue, a sign of happiness. And I, from you, Jason. Until tomorrow, then. Walking back to his quarters, Jason reflected on the day's successes. Learning about Siluran culture not only broadened his own perspectives but also opened doors for deeper connections and understanding across the stars. The next morning found Jason and Lenara together again, this time in a quieter setting at Lenara's quarters aboard the space station. The room was subtly lit, the walls adorned with art that seemed to pulse gently with a life of its own, artwork from Silura that responded to the emotional climate of the room. Jason was the first to break the silence. Your quarters feel alive, almost as if they're breathing with us. Lenara smiled, her skin flickering with a soft blue hue. Siluran art is alive in a sense. It reacts to our emotions and helps harmonize our living spaces with our feelings. That's incredible, Jason replied, looking around with awe. Human art doesn't react like that, but it does evoke emotions. They settled onto a seating arrangement that seemed to mold itself to their forms, providing comfort and closeness. Lenara turned to Jason, her expression serious yet open. Jason, yesterday you learned about nonverbal cues. Today, I thought we might explore something deeper: our empathic communication. It's more intimate and requires a mutual understanding and trust, Lenara explained. Jason nodded, a mix of excitement and nervousness in his eyes. I trust you, Lenara. I'm ready to learn. Good, she responded, her hand reaching out to gently grasp his. Silurans can share emotions through touch. It's a way to communicate feelings directly without words. Shall we try? Lead the way, Jason said, giving her hand a reassuring squeeze. Lenara instructed Jason to close his eyes and focus on the point of contact between their hands. Try to clear your mind and be receptive to what you feel. As the minutes passed, Jason felt a warmth spreading up his arm, a sense of calm enveloping his thoughts. When he opened his eyes, Lenara was watching him closely, her eyes kind. Did you feel that? She asked softly. I did. It was like a wave of peace. Is that how you feel right now? Jason asked, intrigued by the sensation. Yes, I'm glad I could share that with you. It's a fundamental part of who we are, Lenara replied, her tone warm. Encouraged, Jason suggested, maybe I could try to share something back? Though I'm not sure how exactly. Lenara's smile widened. Just think of an emotion you want to share, hold on to that feeling, and let it flow through your hand. Focusing, Jason thought of gratitude, of the deep appreciation he felt for this moment and for Lenara's trust. He concentrated on that emotion, pushing it down his arm. Lenara's eyes fluttered closed, then opened, shimmering slightly. I felt that, Jason. Your gratitude, it's a powerful emotion. Pleased, Jason laughed. This is unlike anything I've experienced before. As they continued, they shared different emotions back and forth, growing more comfortable and moving deeper into the practice. The session became a profound exchange, more intimate than any conversation could have been. When the lesson ended, they were both silent for a moment, processing the experience. Lenara finally spoke. Sharing emotions is not just about understanding others, it's about connecting with them on a fundamental level. Thank you for being open to this, Jason. Jason felt a sense of connection that was new and profound. Thank you, Lenara. This changes how I see communication. It's much more than just words. They agreed to meet again, to continue their explorations into Siluran communication. As Jason left Lenara's quarters, he felt a shift within himself, a deeper empathy not just for Lenara but potentially for all beings. Their sessions, initially meant for learning, were quickly becoming a bridge not just between two people but between two worlds. The viewing deck of the space station offered a stunning panorama of the nebula below, its colors swirling in a celestial dance. Jason and Lenara stood side by side, each lost in the spectacle. The moment felt suspended between the vastness of space and the intimacy of their recent emotional exchanges. Jason broke the silence, his voice soft. I never get tired of this view. It reminds me of how small our problems really are. Lenara turned to him, her eyes reflecting the nebula's hues. And yet, here we are, two beings from different worlds, trying to bridge those vast spaces between us. Exactly, Jason nodded. He took a deep breath, gathering his thoughts. Lenara, these past few days have been transformative for me. I've learned so much from you. And I from you, Lenara replied, turning fully to face him. Your openness, your willingness to understand. It's more than I hoped for. They moved to a pair of seats near the deck's edge, the universe stretching out before them. The station's lights dimmed slightly, enhancing the stars outside. Back on Earth, we have a saying, a clear night brings clear thoughts, Jason said, his gaze still fixed on the stars. What thoughts are clear to you now? Lenara asked, genuinely curious. Jason turned to her, his expression earnest. That connections like ours are rare and worth exploring further. Not just for diplomacy's sake, but because they enrich our lives. Lenara's skin shifted subtly, a sign of deep contemplation in her culture. I feel the same. It's one thing to share emotions intentionally, quite another to find they're shared naturally. Encouraged by her words, Jason reached out, hesitating just a moment before taking her hand. The contact sparked a familiar warmth. May I share something else with you? Jason asked, a hint of nervousness in his voice. Of course, Lenara responded, her voice steady and encouraging. Jason leaned closer, his words a whisper now. I think I'm beginning to feel more for you than just friendship or curiosity. The confession hung between them, a fragile truth exposed to the starlight. Lenara squeezed his hand gently, her response equally soft. I was hoping you would say that, because I feel it too. They moved closer, the gap between them closing naturally. Jason could feel the heat of Lenara's body, her breath mingling with his. Slowly, tentatively, he tilted his head and brushed his lips against hers. The kiss was a question, and her response a gentle deepening of the kiss was the answer. They parted slightly, breathless. I've read about human kissing, Lenara murmured, but the descriptions pale in comparison to the experience. Jason chuckled, his heart lighter than it had been in a long time. There's a lot more to human affection. If you're interested, I'd like to show you. I would like that, Lenara said, her voice laced with laughter and new possibilities. The rest of the evening passed with them sharing stories of their worlds, their dreams, and their desires. Each tale brought them closer, weaving their experiences together into a new tapestry that was theirs alone. As the station orbited into the shadow of the nebula, casting an ethereal glow over the viewing deck, Jason and Lenara sat hand in hand, a man from Earth and a woman from the stars, their hearts orbiting closer with every passing moment. The following evening, Lenara invited Jason to her quarters again. The room was softly illuminated, resonating with the subtle, pulsing lights of her living artwork, reflecting her calm and inviting mood. Jason, still feeling the high from their kiss the night before, stepped inside, his heart beating a bit faster. This place feels different every time I come here. Like it's attuned to your feelings. Lenara smiled, her skin glowing with a warm, amber light. It does react to my emotions. Tonight, it senses my happiness. She motioned for Jason to sit beside her on the soft, moldable furniture that conformed to their shapes as they settled in. I've been thinking about what happened between us last night, Lenara began. her voice both serious and gentle. "It was a significant step for us." Jason nodded, his eyes meeting hers. "It was. And it's made me curious about more. About you, about us." "Curiosity is the beginning of understanding," Lenara replied, reaching out to touch his hand. "In Silura, when two beings feel a connection, they explore it in all dimensions emotionally, intellectually, and physically." Jason felt a thrill at her words. "And how would we explore that? I mean, physically?" Lenara's touch lingered, her fingers tracing light patterns on his skin. "With your consent, I'd like to show you." "I'd like that," Jason said, his voice a mix of eagerness and a touch of nervousness. Lenara stood, leading Jason by the hand to a different part of her quarters, where the light dimmed to a soothing twilight. She turned to face him, her hands resting gently on his shoulders. Physical closeness among Silurians involves more than just touch. It involves the sharing of warmth, of breath, of life essence, she explained. It's very intimate and can be very pleasurable. Jason, emboldened by her openness, whispered back, "Show me." Lenara stepped closer, eliminating the space between them. Her hands moved to his face, her fingers lightly exploring the contours. Jason mirrored her actions, touched her face, learning the texture and warmth of her skin. "This is how we start," Lenara murmured. "With gentle touches, we learn each other's form." As their exploration continued, Lenara guided Jason's hands along her arms, her sides, and back to her hands. She did the same, creating a dance of touch that was both instructive and deeply stirring. "Your skin. It's amazing," Jason commented, his fingertips brushing against the subtle shifts in her skin's hue. "It reacts to touch, to emotion," Lenara explained, her own hands not idle as they explored his back, his arms, his neck. Jason's breath hitched as Lenara's fingers traced along his jawline, then to his lips. He responded in kind, his touch growing more confident. Lenara's breathing deepened, her chest rising and falling in sync with his. Their faces were inches apart now, the tension between them both palpable and inviting. Lenara's eyes flickered with a light that seemed to pull him in deeper. "Jason, may I?" Without waiting for an answer, she closed the gap, kissing him. This time, the kiss was deeper, fueled by the night's discoveries and the mutual desire to explore further. Jason responded with equal passion, his hands tangling in her hair, pulling her closer. When they finally parted, they were both breathless, their foreheads resting against each other. "I want more, please," Lenara whispered, her voice thick with emotion and desire. Jason smiled, his heart racing with the thrill of the new and unknown. "So do I." They spent the rest of the night exploring, kissing, touching, each learning the other's responses and delights, the room's light shifting with their moods, creating a symphony of color that matched their discovery of each other. The following day, Jason visited Lenara's sensory-enhanced room, a space designed to heighten experiences through light, sound, and aroma. Lenara greeted him with a warm smile, her demeanor indicating a continuation of their deepening relationship. "Welcome, Jason," she said, gesturing towards the center of the room where a soft, radiant mat lay on the floor, surrounded by panels that pulse gently with soothing colors. "This room amplifies sensations. It might help us explore even more about each other." Jason, intrigued by the setting, nodded. "I'm ready. Last night was incredible." Lenara's skin shimmered with a pleasant green hue. "I'm glad you think so. I believe today will be even more enlightening." She invited Jason to sit on the mat with her, the surface conforming softly to their bodies. "Let's start with synchronized breathing. It helps harmonize our emotions." They sat facing each other, legs crossed, eyes locked. Lenara instructed, "Breathe in slowly, hold it, and exhale when I do." They inhaled and exhaled together, and with each breath, Jason felt more attuned to Lenara, his previous apprehensions melting away. "As we sync our breathing," Lenara continued, "let's also synchronize our heartbeats. Place your hand over my heart, and I'll do the same." Jason did as instructed, feeling the steady beat of Lenara's heart under his palm, and placed her hand over his chest. The sensation was comforting, intimate, and profoundly connecting. As their breathing and heartbeats aligned, the room's ambience adjusted to a deeper blue, reflecting the calm and depth of their current state. "Now, close your eyes," Lenara whispered. "Focus on the connection, our touch, our breaths, our hearts." Jason closed his eyes, concentrating on the warmth of Lenara's hand, the rhythmic beating of her heart, and the soft, ambient sounds that seemed to echo their pulses. The experience was grounding, yet ethereal, like floating in a sea of calm. After several minutes, Lenara gently withdrew her hand, and Jason opened his eyes, slightly reluctant to break the connection. "How do you feel?" Lenara asked, her voice soft. "Centered. Closer to you," Jason replied, his voice reflecting his internal peace. Lenara smiled, pleased. Physical connection can be powerful. But now, let's explore the next layer: emotional sharing, while we're still synchronized. She moved closer, her face inches from Jason's. "Think of a strong emotion, hold on to it, and when I say, let it go, I'll do the same." Jason nodded, closing his eyes again to gather his emotion. This time, it was happiness, pure and simple. "Ready," he murmured. "Now, release," Lenara instructed. A wave of emotion flowed between them, intensified by their previous exercises and the room's sensory enhancements. Jason felt not just his happiness, but a wave of Lenara's emotions as well, joy mixed with a hint of something deeper, more affectionate. When they finally opened their eyes, both were smiling, an understanding passing between them that words could scarcely capture. "Sharing happiness feels good," Jason said, his heart light. "It does," Lenara agreed, her eyes bright. "And sharing it with you feels right." They spent the next few hours in the room, experimenting with different emotions and sensations, each moment building on the last, deepening their bond. The room responded to their emotions, colors and sounds shifting subtly to enhance each feeling. As the session ended, Lenara leaned forward, touching her forehead to Jason's. "Thank you for today. For being open and here with me." Jason reached out, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "I want more, please," he repeated her words from the night before, a smile playing on his lips. "Then more we shall explore," Lenara promised, her voice a whisper of anticipation. Together, they left the room, hand in hand, their connection stronger and more vibrant than ever, eager for the next steps in their journey of exploration and discovery. The conference room was abuzz with delegates from various worlds, all gathered for the joint presentation on human and alien relationships that Jason and Lenara had prepared. They stood together at the front, a pair now familiar and comfortable in each other's presence, ready to share their experiences and insights. Jason adjusted the microphone, his eyes scanning the room. "Good morning, everyone. Today, Lenara and I are excited to discuss something truly remarkable: our journey of intercultural and interpersonal exploration." Lenara nodded, her skin subtly reflecting her calm, focused state. "We've learned that understanding across cultures extends beyond mere words. It involves emotions, senses, and shared experiences." Jason clicked to the first slide, a diagram of human and Silurian emotional expression. "We started with basic nonverbal communication, which is crucial given our different biological cues. As you see here," Lenara pointed to the screen where images of their initial meetings were displayed. "Our first interactions were about learning these nonverbal cues. But as we progressed, we delved deeper into the emotional and physical expressions of our cultures." The next slide showed them in the sensory room, though the details were tasteful and professional. "This room," Jason explained, "enhanced our ability to share emotions directly. It was here that we truly began to understand the depth of our capability to connect." A delegate from a distant aquatic planet raised a hand, her voice curious. "How did these shared emotions affect your personal views on interspecies relationships?" Lenara responded, "It broadened them significantly. Sharing emotions and physical spaces brought us closer, creating a bond that is deeply rooted in understanding and respect." Jason took the next question. "What practical applications do you see for these experiences?" "We believe," Jason started, then gestured for Lenara to continue, "that these practices could be used in diplomatic training, helping envoys truly connect with their counterparts on an emotional level. It could lead to more empathetic and effective diplomacy," Lenara concluded. The presentation shifted to their proposed initiatives, including workshops and exchange programs. "We want to facilitate spaces where beings from different worlds can safely explore emotional and cultural exchange," Jason detailed. A skeptical delegate from a technologically advanced world voiced a concern. "Isn't there a risk of emotional overload or misunderstanding in such intimate exchanges?" "That's a valid point," Jason acknowledged. "Which is why part of our initiative includes careful moderation and psychological support to navigate these exchanges." Lenara added, "It's about creating understanding, not discomfort. Every step of the way, consent and comfort are paramount." As the presentation concluded, the room erupted in applause, many delegates nodding appreciatively or whispering excitedly to each other. It was clear that Jason and Lenara had sparked a keen interest in their approach to intercultural relations. Afterward, as the room cleared, Jason and Lenara remained at the front, discussing feedback and next steps with interested parties. "That went better than I hoped," Jason said to Lenara, a relieved grin on his face. Lenara's color shimmered warmly. It did. It feels like we're on the brink of something new, something good. As they packed up their materials, Tom approached them, clapping Jason on the back. You two are quite the team. Count me in on this project. I think it has legs.
Thanks,
Tom, Jason replied. We'd be glad to have you. Together, the trio discussed potential collaborations and strategies, their conversation filled with hope and excitement for the future. Jason and Lenara, once just representatives of their respective cultures, now stood as pioneers of a new frontier in interspecies understanding and cooperation. As the Interstellar Conference drew to a close, Jason and Lenara found themselves on the viewing deck of the space station once more, gazing out at the stars that seemed to stretch into infinity. The success of their presentation had set in motion plans that would extend far beyond the confines of the conference. I can't believe it's almost over, Jason remarked, his tone tinged with a blend of satisfaction and wistfulness. Lenara leaned against the railing next to him, her gaze fixed on the nebula swirling in the distance. Nor can I. It feels like we've started something that will outlast this event, something meaningful. Jason turned to her, his expression earnest. We have. And I think we're just at the beginning. How do you feel about taking this beyond the conference? About actually implementing our ideas on Earth and Silura? I think it's necessary, Lenara replied, her voice resolute. We've talked about intercultural understanding in theory, but now we have a chance to practice it, to really make a difference. The idea of you on Earth, experiencing my world as I have experienced your quarters here. It's exciting, Jason said, the prospect sparking a light in his eyes. And daunting, Lenara added with a laugh. But I am eager to learn, to see your home with my own eyes. They discussed potential timelines, logistical needs, and the support they might require from their respective governments. The conversation was peppered with technical details, but the underlying excitement was palpable. As they were deep in discussion, Tom approached, a wide grin on his face. You two are hard to catch. Always planning the next big thing. Jason smiled. Tom. Just the man we need. We're discussing the practical steps to bring our project to life. Interested in helping us lay the groundwork? Absolutely, Tom responded enthusiastically. I think what you're proposing could really change how we interact with alien cultures. Count me in. Great, Jason said. We'll need a detailed proposal, budgets, and perhaps a pilot program to start. And lots of coffee, Tom added, chuckling. Lenara's color shifted playfully. I have learned that coffee is indeed crucial for human productivity. Their laughter filled the space, echoing off the metal walls and out into the cosmos through the transparent dome above. As the station's artificial day turned to evening, Jason, Lenara, and Tom continued their planning, their voices a testament to their commitment and enthusiasm. They outlined a series of workshops and exchange programs, drafting a preliminary schedule and identifying key individuals and organizations that could support their initiative. Finally, as the nebula outside shifted from brilliant blues to the deep purples of the station's night, they decided to call it a day. Before we go, Jason said, turning to Lenara with a serious yet gentle look, there's something I've been meaning to ask you. Lenara met his gaze, her expression open and attentive. Would you consider extending your stay? Not just for the project, but because... Well, because I'd like to see where this could go, for us. Lenara's response came in the form of her hand reaching for his, her touch warm and reassuring. I would like that very much, Jason. Their hands linked, they looked out at the stars, their hearts aligned with the possibilities that lay ahead. Not just for a project or a partnership, but for something deeper, a connection that had begun in a conference and could stretch across the stars. As they left the viewing deck, the station behind them and the universe ahead, Jason and Lenara stepped into the future together, ready for whatever challenges and joys it might bring.